Landscape architecture is the art and the science of creating spaces.
My inspiration started with my geography teacher at the Lodge School, where she showed me the connection between people and places, culture and nature and the environment. And then as I got older, my mom, who was an artist, worked in paper, like in a sculptural form, introduced me to Asama Noguchi, Japanese-American sculptor, who created, very iconic environments through the use of sculpture and space. That led on to Roberto Burle Marx, the most famous tropical landscape architect in the world. He was famous for his grand gardens. He also created Copacabana Beachscape. The Highline Park in New York City has kind of shown how landscape architecture can repurpose and reimagine a elevated railroad track.
Frederick Law Olmsted, the way that he envisaged such a large public open space was one to be admired. Inspiration comes from something as simple as a walk on the beach, or a drive in the car, or traveling to foreign spaces.
In a small island, the coastline is one of the more powerful landscapes, and we wanted to show people that landscape architecture is a very creative process, and it does not have to mean technical drawings. It draws from these inspirational spaces, and someone could go on a beach and assemble something with driftwood and create art, and that could be the genesis of great design. At the end of the day, we also do agree that nature becomes the greatest inspiration in terms of landscape design and architecture. The funny thing about landscape architecture, it's so hard to define. There's this ambiguous nature about it, and I think we find that is the beauty of landscape architecture, because it allows us to engage in creativity in many different ways. We design parks, we design plazas, we design streets, we design gardens and resorts. We can write about environmental affairs. The range of things we do are so vast, and that's the beauty of landscape architecture.
Ultimately, everything outside that building envelope is what we pride ourselves in being able to do. It could be something as simple as a pool design, pedestrian walkways to traverse from one space to another, down to the irrigation to ambient lighting.
We have found with our clients that really are looking for great spaces, they recognize that they need to maybe invest a bit more of their budget on the outside, and that adds the value to their property and makes it more useful for them.
Well, it's trying to find that happy marriage between the outdoor spaces and the indoor spaces, which is critical. From pool decks to transitional spaces within the gardens, more importantly even so in the evening time, where we have learned and have seen that about 90% of the entertaining happens in the evening hours.
In the Caribbean, we could think of it as inside out, where the weather is so great, you should be focusing on your outside and make the transition to the inside. This idea of transition needs to happen in a grand style and also in an effortless style. The mistake often made is people develop the house and then there's this distinct separation between outside and inside. And our job is to make that transition feel like it's special and easy. The thing about landscape architecture is that it brings to bear all the elements, physical elements, the environmental elements, and creates a space that is distinctive. environmental planning, it's interesting because the ethics and the processes of environmental design using nature as a key to design was always intrinsic in the training of landscape architects. And we kind of sit back and gloat a bit now because now sustainable design is becoming such a current theme. We always kind of say that we were there from the beginning, but we're very happy to see it become mainstream because, again, this is where we see our role as environmental planners as part of a team, because the environment is about nature and people, and like urban design and landscape design, all jobs and projects involve the coordination of different disciplines. Environmental planning, as it relates to our practice, ranges from sustainable design for buildings to looking at environmental impact assessments, assessing landscape spaces, providing our clients with scoping studies on how to develop land but also conserve the natural environment.
Our firm now currently has 3 professionals who have the lead designation, one under the AP and us under the Green Associate. The process of lead, this is what we always try to follow in whatever project or scale that we may work in. The integrated approach between landscape architects and other consultants, along with the contractors and clients, is very important to us in our process.
It is just an ethic and a process that allows us to craft spaces with certain qualities that we think are positive. In environmental planning, in our context, one of the key areas that we find ourselves applying these principles is in tourism development, whether it is for hotels, ecotourism projects, heritage projects, conserving natural spaces as parks. Those are current issues in the Caribbean and the world as well.
As a developer, the process of sustainable design and construction and certification tends to promote added value to that destination, whether it be as a retail space or a hotel or tourism destination. There's niches now of travelers and tenants, investors that are looking for projects which have the designation as a green and sustainable product. That trend of green, the term green, is obviously widely used and not nearly as widely practiced. I think as landscape architects we have to be on the forefront of what is green and how to design with a sustainable mindset while creating that space that everybody wants. On the higher end, as people have traveled, they are experiencing the luxuries of green. And the green is not living out in a campsite, in a tent. There are resorts, there are homes, and many, many different places that have been constructed with a sustainable mindset that have defined or redefined luxury.
Because this concept is so widely used, the clients and the customers and the patrons of projects, they require the projects to demonstrate a real and authentic green mindset. And it's not just by saying that, they have to demonstrate it either by a credentialing system or showing it on the ground. You have to actually be honest about being green. Urban design, crafting of the city, is interdisciplinary. You have architects, engineers, town planners, landscape architects, all combining their skills to redevelop and develop cities. Landscape architects have a key role because we design parks, plazas, recreational spaces, and those are the fabric of the city. Those are the spaces between the buildings. So we're quite excited about urban design because we get to participate in development of new cities and the reinvention of old cities.
Cities in general, as time has gone by, have been the fabric of society. You go into the city to get produce, and more so of recent, that has been lost, whether it be from a security standpoint. And I think as landscape architects, what we try to do is reintroduce or reinvent that way of city living, whether it be through increased lighting, green space, pedestrian sidewalks, increased drainage ability, making it more pleasant to bring people back into the city as we knew it.
There are case studies all around the world that prove that a great park can increase the property values of the buildings around them, and that's where again we see our role. The other interesting area for landscape architects in urban design is the issue of green infrastructure, and again it's the reimagination and the reinvention of how you can design what we call a grey infrastructure, the old systems of pipes and roads and drains, into green infrastructure, which is the idea of green spaces that deal with drainage, deal with security, deal with transportation, reinstituting mangroves in rivers, taking the culverts out of rivers. All these kind of things are interesting and applicable to landscape architecture.
Paving paradise and putting up a parking lot, a phrase from a song from I Know It Has a Counting Crows, Kevin knows it, from Joni Mitchell, hence the separation in years. And I think in reality it's what we need to be thinking of.
There is a conclusion statement I got in my mind relative to design being an agent for change, and how the beauty of landscape architecture and design is that we get to imagine new scenarios. So I was going to use that kind of statement as part of the conclusion as we talk about like what are the emerging issues in the world, urbanization, population growth, lack of resources, water, lack of play space for kids, and again the opportunity for landscape architecture to provide a reimagined future. And that's one thing that design is unique about design. We can actually imagine something that's not there, and we're looking forward to using landscape architecture to apply ourselves to these emerging issues. At the end of the day, landscape architecture becomes the art and science of creating spaces.